Good morning, I'm WaywornWyrm, and welcome to my channel. And welcome to Friday. So the channel's been pretty quiet while I'm still dealing with the fallout from my computer, and I apologize that it is so quiet. But that is one of the big things we're going to be talking about today, just like we did last week. But we're up to 51 subscribers, which is awesome. We're still getting some views every day, which is awesome. And I'm overall happy with how everything's working out, all things considered. But right now, I am currently working on 4 videos that should go up sometime this coming week. I'm not sure when. I'm probably going to be waiting until Tuesday to start putting those out. But yeah, so that's something to look forward to, and they will be... they will all be either the continuation of a series or the start of a new series. So we will be getting back to regularly scheduled videos, I would say starting Monday morning with the Monday morning live stream. And that is definitely something I am aiming for and is obtainable from where I am at the moment. And one of those stories is probably not going to be the Stolen Land. The Stolen Land is probably going to continue in the weird hiatus that most of my series are in right now. And I want to specifically talk about that series because I know in at least one of the videos that I've talked about and just sort of opened up about these computer troubles, I did mention that the Stolen Land should be the easiest to convert over, which also implies it's the easiest to start up again, or one of. Reading A Study in Scarlet is the easiest. The Monster Manual Backward is the second easiest, with the Stolen Land being the third. So, the logical question, I guess, is, well, what gives? Why have we been waiting so long and there hasn't been another Stolen Land to tide us over? And that has kind of a complicated answer. So, I haven't actually redone the Stolen Land, although it's very easy. I just have to go back, see where the characters were at the last point that the data was saved on this computer, because the Stolen Land is the only story that is partially saved on this computer. And then use that, go through the campaign book, figure out what treasure they got after that, level them up again, and going from level 1 to level 2, especially in Pathfinder, it's not that difficult. The whole thing, probably 1 to 2 hours. And then I start working on episode 9. And this is where it gets complicated and is one of the things that's holding me back from even starting on that. And that is episode 9. The first 8 episodes contain a full story arc. The Volso expedition is given this task to map this area. They're going to go to Olaf's trading post because that is the last bit of civilization before this untamed wilderness. They get there. They learn that bandits are coming and they're going to be attacking in the morning. Since they're good and heroic and they'll be there anyway, they decide to fight off the bandits. They successfully fight off the bandits. However, they're then told this is just part of a bandit camp, and they're told where the bandit camp is by a survivor. So they're like, okay, we're going to go attack the bandit camp. But before they leave, Oleg's wife is like, hey, these guys stole my ring. My wedding ring. I would appreciate it if you could bring it back to me. And again, being the good, heroic people they are, they're like, yeah, we'll do that. That's no problem. So they go to the camp, and they destroy the camp. But they discover that Svetlana's ring isn't there. Svetlana being Oleg's wife. But they do learn, again, from a survivor, oh, the mites took it. It's like, okay, well, where are the mites? The guy didn't know. So they went back to Oleg to drop off their prisoner and ask, hey, where... Or no, the guy told them the mites are at the old sycamore, but wouldn't tell him where the old sycamore was, I think. I don't remember. Either the prisoner or Oleg were like, oh, it's at the old sycamore, and then Oleg tells them where the old sycamore is. And they're like, okay. And I think that's actually about the point where it ends on this first computer, but that's kind of beside the point. They then go to the old sycamore. They fight through the mite hive. Then they learn that the Cobalt probably stole the ring from the mites before it even made it to the mite hive. Number 2, they have a Cobalt named Micmec who wants them to go to the Cobalt Cave and is willing to take them there. And 3, they have this statue that's very important to the Cobalts. And so there are all these lines that are pushing them to the Cobalts. They go to the Cobalts, they defeat Tartuk, and then they go back to Oleg's. And that's sort of the end of... That is the end of the arc. They find the ring, they give it back to Svetlana, they're rewarded handsomely. And that's great. That quest line is over. As you notice, as I'm telling the story, at the end of each part, there's a really compelling reason to go to the next part. Well, they're now at a point where they don't really have a compelling reason to go anywhere, which is fine. It's part of their overall mission. Remember, they're supposed to map. They really haven't done any mapping. And they have a couple of just kind of hanging plot threads that are just, oh, by the way, as you're traveling around mapping, if you happen to come across X, Y, well, just X and Y, because they only have 2, please let this person know. And again, being the good, heroic people they are, they're like, yeah, we will do that. That's not an issue. But I was writing episode 9 when my computer died for good. And I was having a lot of trouble with it because episode 9 is the first of, I honestly have no idea how many episodes of them doing a hex crawl where they spend one day in every hex and map the whole thing, and they get... Let's see, I went through the first 3 hexes, and in those 3 hexes, 3 days of travel, they got 1 random encounter. 1d4 boars. And so that's going to happen, you know, like. But it's really so. This section of the adventure, because it is a adventure module. This part of it, it can be really fun to play at the table, and you can montage through the boring parts. It's no issue. But trying to make a dramatic story out of it where the main enjoyment is people listening to the narrative, that makes this section kind of tedious. It's really hard to come up with drama that involves them walking through an open field for 12 hours, mapping that the entire area is a field. And like it's a little more than that and everything, but that's, you know, they're in a hex where the primary terrain type is grassland. And mechanically what they're doing is they're spending a day there. It's not a place where there's a location to find. Of the first 3 hexes that they do, one has a location, and that location is Oleg's, because they hadn't actually mapped the area around Oleg's trading post. And it's kind of tedious. And it is completely on me to find the drama in going, okay, a day to map this part, a day to map this part, a day to map this part. Every so many hours we roll for a random encounter. Oh, we get a random encounter. Let's play through that combat. That combat is going to take up about a third of an episode. So, I mean, that's a really dry thing that's going on, and that's okay. Like, I'm not being like, damn it, it needs, we need to have excitement in every single episode. But we need, I'm not saying that, but I kind of am. Because there needs to be a story, or else just kind of pop in on them here and there and find some way to just kind of explain time is going by between these little vignettes. I think I'm going to end up making at least a couple of scenes where they're around the campfire and just kind of focus on character development. Just kind of... It's going to be one of those episodes in the TV show where, where Ryker plays the trombone for half the episode. Where there really isn't much that happens, but going forward, you're like, okay, Ryker, one thing we know about him is he's a fairly good trombone player. Awesome. That's wonderful. And now we're going to move on. So I just need to make a couple episodes like that, and it's still in the kind of pre-planning phase. Ideas are bubbling in the back of my head. And once they hit the point where I can sit down and start writing one episode, that should also unlock the pattern that I'm going to do for the next several episodes. But it's just, it's getting over that first hurdle. And honestly, I'm finding that to be quite difficult right now. which is also part of the reason why I'm moving to a couple other stories. I'm moving towards some sci-fi, because the channel in its old form, and I say old form, the pre-computer crash, was very fantasy heavy. And I'm still going to keep that, but I'm going to add in some sci-fi. As I said, there are a couple of stories that are going to end, like Curse the Darkness. That is unfortunately over. Excuse me. But I've got a second Zweihander story. I've made some characters for it. I'm having some difficulty figuring out what the adventure is going to be in that. They're not quite gelling like my first group did, and I'm not going to continue the story of In a Bitter Harvest, which was the adventure I was using, because, well, honestly, I would have to go through I'd have to redo the first several episodes, or just pretend they didn't happen. It'd be weird. Actually, honestly, I might do that, because A Bitter Harvest tells a really awesome story. I'll do something. But if I'm going to continue with this idea that I've been having of it's going to be a whole new adventure, it's going to take a bit. So, there are plenty of things kind of bubbling. I am trying to reconnect with NYX Interactive. He and I mostly recorded a collaboration video, and we're going to have to re-record all of that, because my computer just couldn't handle it. We couldn't get a good video put together. But that's okay. It's gonna happen, probably in the near future. Our schedules just don't line up very well. So we kind of have to put in a lot of effort to make sure that it happens. Which, again, not a problem. It just means it takes longer than I think either of us would like. Got another thing coming up. That will be... I'll be doing a discussion with a couple other people about D&D stuff. And I'll talk more about that as that gets firmed up. I am on a list to be a guest on this show, and we've just it's scheduling at the moment right now, which is where most of the issues in trying to collaborate with people take place, is in trying to schedule. But that's going to come up, and they'll be awesome, and I'll tell you more as I know more. But remember, in 2 days, I am going to be doing character creation for the live stream over on Twitch. It's going to be The Curse of Strahd, the 5th edition campaign book. I've got 3 players. That's going to happen on Sunday. And then probably on Monday, most likely right around the time that I start my Monday morning live stream, I will put up the episode on YouTube. So, you can't watch it live on YouTube, unfortunately, but you should be able to watch it the next day. So, that is happening. Make sure you tune into that. That's probably the next thing that's going to go up on this channel. It is definitely the next thing that WaywornWyrm is going to do. With all of that said, I hope to see all of you over on my Twitch channel on Sunday night. Remember, the link for that is in the description down below. And I will see you there.